It's time to take a ride on the Steelers Afternoon Drive with our co-hosts Alan Saunders and Zachary Smith.
Welcome back to another episode of Steelers Afternoon Drive. I'm Zachary Smith. That is Alan Saunders. Alan, how are we doing coming off a Father's Day weekend? How was your Father's Day?
It was good. It was good. I did some work around the house. My mom made lasagna.
Just total dad mode, doing stuff around the house.
And then I was on TV, so I didn't get to have the whole day off, but it was most of the day, and it was good.
Okay.
It was on the Final Word last night. You check that out at SteelersNow.com if you're into that kind of thing. Me and Jenna and Rob Rossi and Cale Berger, former Steelers Now.
There we go.
Writer.
Some alumni.
Now at Y108 and 93.7 The Fan.
There we go.
It was good.
Yeah,
Smitty,
my dad was laying down mulch, so
Can we talk about that? You have eyes again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're good. We're back. All the way back.
That's good. That's good. Although I think we need to leave the Bears in the holster there. You know, sometimes it might just need to happen.
Yeah, no, I feel like it was a good look. And honestly,
I agree.
and also like kind of mask. Like I could be looking different directions and people wouldn't know. Like it can also maybe allow me to, not be just keeps the people guessing in terms of where my eyes are at.
I like it.
So there we go. Yeah, but anyways, coming off Father's Day weekend, Alan, a little bit of news to talk about on a Monday. We thank the football world for giving us some news to talk about. Hard Knocks in season. We knew that they were going to be covering an entire division this year, and that division will be the AFC North. So the Steelers will be part of the in-season Hard Knocks. We talked not that long ago. Somebody asked us a question about the Steelers being on Hard Knocks and how it would change your job and affect your job. They were more so referring to obviously the ones that take place during training camp and stuff, and that's the one that we were talking about there. But now this possibility that somebody threw out there is becoming a reality because the Steelers will be featured on Hard Knocks in some capacity.
Yeah, it'll be the in-season version along with the rest of the entire AFC North. So 4 teams for the first time. They've only been doing the in-season version since 2021. So this will be the 4th time around. Honestly, I don't know. Maybe it's just because we have a bunch of football then that like I'm already, watching football 5 days a week at that point anyway. I don't know. It just doesn't seem to have the same juice, the same like cultural relevance as the preseason one. I also don't think they've been as good. The coaches are a lot more restrictive in what they've let the cameras do in season, understandably so. So I think having 4 teams will make the show a lot better, just because it's not so hard to get good content out of one team. You can kind of spread it around a little bit. I'm actually kind of looking forward to it. I think it's going to be interesting to watch. I'll be interested to see how they sort of structure the show. I remember like way back, sort of the Penguins and Capitals did the one before their Winter Classic game, and I thought that one I really enjoyed watching that. And I think being able to move around multiple teams makes it much more of a like national product than like who really cared what the Indianapolis Colts were doing in their season last year if you weren't an Indianapolis Colts fan. Like that team just wasn't relevant to the national conversation. And so now I think this is going to be more like a weekly documentary about the like inside the NFL is, except for just the AFC North. And I'm pretty fired up about that. I think that could be a lot of fun.
Yeah, so the history of in-season Hard Knocks has been Colts, Cardinals, and Dolphins the first 3 seasons that they've done it. Yeah, I agree with the sentiment that I've always enjoyed the training camp one more than the in-season one. Now, the Cardinals one to me was a bit entertaining because we watched them collapse, and obviously Cliff Kingsbury was removed from his position at the end of that one. So, like, that one was a little bit more interesting to me than the other 2 have been. But I mentioned to you before we started recording that, like, we talked about the Steelers probably wouldn't be the biggest fans of this. You mentioned maybe a little bit different capacity there, so maybe it wouldn't be as bad.
Yeah, I mean, if you're a coach or a team that doesn't want to do this is how you agree to it, right? I mean, not only are you splitting time 4 ways with the other 3 teams in the division, but if you are, let's say you're where the Cardinals were, if you're let's say something just awful happens to the Steelers this year and they're at the very bottom of the division, just have a hopeless year, you're probably going to get ignored comparatively on the show. They're going to spend a lot of their time focusing on the teams that are in the playoff race and are competing for the division. And so I think I think it makes it a lot more palatable, right? Because, there's somebody else to talk to or talk about if your season isn't going very well. So I think that eliminates a lot of the downsides for a team to not want to do this. They also changed the rules. And actually, I got this wrong when we talked before. So now the playoff thing does not matter anymore. You cannot refuse to go on Hard Knocks anymore, except that you only have to go on once every 8 years. So the Steelers now had no sort of say in this, but I think this is as friendly of an outcome as they were going to get from the league in terms of being willing to agree to do this.
Yeah, that's a good point, because there's so many storylines basically for all these teams going into the season. I mean, especially with the Steelers, all the turnover and stuff like that. But will that still be the case by the time that we get to this point where it's going to be the in-season version? That's a good point. I guess I really wasn't thinking about that in terms of like the amount of coverage each team will get.
Yeah. Now, the other part that gets really interesting is, was this decided before or after the schedule came out?
Yeah, all the division games. Yep.
Because all the division games are, especially for the Steelers, are at the end of the year. So, I mean, they're going to be featured heavily in this show, whether they like it or not, because it's all going to be happening while they're even if they're not, the producers aren't trying to talk about the Steelers, they're going to be playing one of these teams almost every week. So the Steelers schedule of the last 8 weeks starts with, it has 6 division games. This starts, the first episode of this will be December 3rd, I think they said. So that is after week 13. So the Steelers will be right in the, they'll have played their second division game the Sunday before the premiere of this. And then they'll play Bengals, Browns, Eagles, Browns, Chiefs, Bengals to finish the season. So yeah, gonna be a lot of fun.
I'm super intrigued by this. I think they made the right call in terms of the AFC North for the first time in doing this. I don't know like what the pecking order would have been, but are you in agreement? Like if you're picking an entire division to cover here, the AFC North makes sense to be the first ones to do it.
Dude, not only does it make sense to be the first one to do it, you could honestly just make this show like Hard Knocks, the AFC. What year would the AFC North have been a bad choice for the show?
Yeah.
I really, I mean, there have been constant battles at the top of the division. The teams at the top of the division have consistently been contenders to come out of the AFC, and they've also had like incredible drama around really awful Browns and Bengals teams mixed in there too. Like, I don't know, it's pretty. The AFC North has had 2 playoff teams in 4 straight years. 2 of those 4 years, they had 3 playoff teams. And I think if you looked at the AFC right now, you'd think they have a pretty good chance to have at least 2 playoff teams again. I mean, that's the division you want.
Yeah, I don't even know who. I mean, this is pointless to the conversation, I guess, but like who would even have been the second one in your mind? Like who would have made sense after the AFC North?
The NFC East, I think, is always the other division that gets talked about that way because of the interest level of all the teams. But the Giants did the off-season version, which was like centered on the draft and free agency. So I'm sure they were able to beg off of doing it again. I don't know. I guess the AFC East would be interesting. Although the Dolphins just did it last year. So again, I don't know how much you want to go down that road. I don't really think there's a better choice most years, but certainly not this year.
Yeah, I can't wait to see how this plays out and then be able to have conversations on here in terms of like what you're seeing with the way that it's playing out as it does. Anything more to add to the Hard Knocks conversation?
So just to reiterate, we were asked before, do I think it'll change my job? It's just going to be more work because there'll be more stuff to cover that I'll have to pay attention to, but I don't think it's going to change the way we go about doing our jobs at all outside of that.
Make sure you get those Max subscriptions, even if you're talking about just a free trial right around when this is about to premiere.
Yeah.
Alan, you wrote a story.
I do have one more thing I want to talk about this.
Okay, go ahead.
Who do you think will be some players on the Steelers that maybe people around the league don't really know that much about whether it's the way they play or their personality, that might be kind of like Hard Knocks breakout stars.
Okay, I mean, the first one that comes to mind, and it's biased, he's been on the show, but E-Rob, I feel like, is going to really, like, his personality is going to come through on there. Like, that is when Landon Roberts is going to become E-Rob. People are going to find out a little bit more about him. You know, when I think about personalities on the team, another guy that, like, jumps off to me from a personality standpoint, now, let's see if he makes the roster this year. Obviously didn't play much last year. Brain Fajoko, I feel like, has a lot to offer in that capacity. Maybe the Herbigs as well. People don't know about that are big personalities.
Being really popular. DeMonte Casey just talks an unbelievable amount of trash, but like at practice and in games. I could see him being someone that people enjoy watching.
Following them in training camp to get to see Pickens and Joey go head to head in training camp, that would be something. But like, because it's the in-season version, you know, you're kind of
yeah.
So
and the real answer for me is, if you're the kind of person that was upset about Mike Tomlin getting his contract extension and you feel some type of way about the national media's love fest with Mike Tomlin, I got bad news for you. The rest of the world getting to see Mike Tomlin behind the scenes at practice is only going to make the rest of the world fall in love with him more. Like, whatever people think of Mike Tomlin as a head coach, when they watch him at practice every day, they're going to be like, oh. Like, I'm telling you, Mike Tomlin will be the breakout star of this show. And Mike Tomlin is already a huge star, but people do not get to see the Mike Tomlin I see every day. Maybe he'll be different. Maybe he'll be more guarded, but I think that people are going to fall in love with him even more. You remember when he did the interview with Ryan Clark, and he kind of like let his guard down a little bit. He kind of let people see behind the curtain in a way that he doesn't normally. And the reaction that got, man, I think this is going to be like that times 10.
Yeah, that's a good point. You know, I was going to mention maybe people getting to see how fiery Zach Azzanni. He was just on it. Zach Azzanni was with the Jets last year.
Yeah, he was
on Hard Knocks. So I could throw that one out. Yeah, I don't know. I think I gave my answers there. I can't think. Nobody else really jumps off the page. I know a lot of people are going to talk about, you know, Russ just because of the personality that he is being on there, but I don't know. He's not. But again, you said like a breakout star, like somebody that people don't know about.
Russ is already Russ. I don't think that's Mike Tomlin's already Mike Tomlin. I'm telling you, but it's going to be, if people actually get to see the Mike Tomlin that we see at practice every day, that's going to be the number one talking point of the show. Period.
Yeah. Maybe, you know, Patrick Queen, I feel like also well known, but like
there's good drama there too, and TV does love good drama. So Patrick Queen, you know, going to Baltimore is certainly going to be a part of that, you know, a part of the storyline of the show for sure.
Absolutely. Alan, we have a little bit of time off. The team does until July 24th. Until we talk about the Steelers going back to practice, but that does not mean Omar Khan does. You wrote a story talking about kind of going over what his summer priorities should be, enlisting them. Obviously, the conversation today, especially with Brandon Ayuk posting the TikTok talking about the team not wanting him and stuff, kind of goes into this, but that was not at the top of your list when going over what Omar Khan's, you know, priorities should be, checking boxes so far this summer.
Yeah, I think it's, you know, we can talk more about Ayuk, but I just think when you look at the team, they need a wide receiver, and certainly I think they should do something there. But when I look at what's, like, to me, realistic and what's possible and what they should prioritize, man, like I'm trying to sign Pat Freiermuth to a contract extension. Like, I think he's ready for a big breakout. He's been so good all spring. He's going to have a huge role in this offense. And I got, you know, the Falcons tight ends had 174 targets last year. I understand Darnell Washington and Connor Hayward are getting some of those, but that's probably like 100 plus targets for Pat Freiermuth this year. That's a big year, man. And so if the Steelers have any kind of mind to keep him long term, do it now, because it's going to be way more expensive if you wait until next March. I think he's poised for that kind of season.
And I think that you added some good context in that article about, because there's a lot of people that are like, yeah, they throw to tight ends, but look at how much a guy like Jonnu Smith was taken away from Kyle Pitts. But there's not like a Jonnu Smith on the Steelers, like to do that. Like all credit to Darnell Washington, what he brings to the table, Connor Hayward, Michael Pruitt. But that's not, the pass catching type of Jonnu Smith there that's kind of chomping away at the targets for tight ends.
It's not. And yeah, I mean, I guess Jaylen Warren probably will get some of those just as like a second pass catcher back, but and the not going to the wide receivers. I mean, so I think there's potential for a huge season for Pat Freiermuth. It just makes too much sense to me. Obviously, they have to protect themselves with the concussion history. His production hasn't been incredible, but that's why I just think the contract shouldn't be that hard to do if they really are seeing what I'm seeing, that this is a guy that looks ready for a breakout. I said earlier this offseason, I thought it might get challenging if Pat Freiermuth is going to want paid like his potential is and not like what his the back of his football card says. And I agree with that. But I think just seeing this offense and seeing him in the role that seems to be lined up for him in it, man, I don't know. Like, what's the plan if you don't want to keep Pat Freiermuth here long term? Like, does anybody think that Hayward or Washington has the ability to move into like a full-time starter role? Like, I just don't see it. I think the Steelers might have to pay more than they want to, but I'd really be if I were them, I would really be trying to get this deal done. And I think that's of the things they have out there, it's the easiest, and I think it's very important considering his role in the team this season.
Yeah, and we've talked about this a couple times, and I just keep going back to this, like having the foresight for what is going to happen with him in the offense this season to get it done before it happens. And I'm not saying like a discounted price, but certainly discounted to what it could be following this season if you try to negotiate with him right before he hits unrestricted free agency in 2025. So I don't know. I'm with you in terms of that. And that was another good point. Like if it's not Pat Freiermuth as tight end 1 next year, like where do you pivot to? Like the guys on the roster again for what they bring to the table, but with how important tight end is in this offense, they're certainly not filling those shoes.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't know what the plan is if that's not the plan. And this offense wants to use the tight end. So I think that should be the priority. And then, look, if they can do something a wide receiver, I don't know. Mm-hmm. I think it's a hole, right? It's an addition, not shoring up your. I just wonder. I don't know, man. The San Francisco 49ers don't want to pay Brandon Ayuk $30 million. Why do the Pittsburgh Steelers? I don't know. We've had this conversation many times. Obviously, it's been a big topic all offseason, but I think the longer I go, and I think I've been pretty well. Like I think there is a window here for a deal to be made if things get ugly, where the 49ers would do a trade. But I'm just not even sure if the Steelers want to pay $30 million for a wide receiver. I'm not sure why they would want to either.
Yeah, see, I think it makes more. I don't know why the Niners aren't doing it. That's the thing for me, or at least
they have the offense where they can take advantage of it.
Yeah,
the Steelers aren't going to throw that much in general. We just talked about how much we think they're going to throw to the tight end. They already have George Pickens, who is going to need paid at some point. They don't have their quarterback situation figured out. I don't know. It's a strange scenario. And again, I think you can be pretty critical of Omar Khan if you want to for getting into a place where there are only so many options this time of year, and that happens to be one of them. Where I think it's possible that you get into a scenario where the Steelers don't really want to pay Brandon Ayuk $30 million, but there's nobody else they can get either. There aren't going to be too many wide receivers that are traded between now and the start of the season, or that are available to be traded. I'm not sure they're in a place where they can be picky. I don't know. It's very interesting.
not having the QB situation figured out is the thing for me, because like realistically what that could mean then is after 2024, if it's neither of these guys you feel like are your solution, you're going into George's contract year, you can negotiate with him before the season. I'm sure he's going to be looking for a new contract. Let's go with a hypothetical here that they do acquire Brandon Ayuk and do give him this extension that we're talking about. Are you going to pay 2 receivers contract extensions without knowing what your quarterback situation is? Like, that just seems pretty odd to me. And the other part of it that you were mentioning too there with having George Pickens here, at least me going forward from this point on, I'm not saying he has been a better player up to this point, going forward, and I think a lot of people would agree with this take, I would take George Pickens over Deebo Samuel. So who has the better 1-2 there? Like, I think that Deebo Samuel is more needing of a guy like Brandon Ayuk than George Pickens on the opposite side of him. Although I don't think that Deebo Samuel is necessarily long-term going to be with 49ers.
Yeah, I mean, I think George has been pretty good. I think the questions about George are more about the character stuff than the play stuff, right? I mean, like George on the field has been awesome. Well, except for the not blocking on the field thing.
And I think being coached by you're going to find out a lot about George Pickens this year, not just on the field, but like everything about him with Zach Azzani and Artie Smith as his coaches.
I did write this. So on Saturday, I wrote 6,000 word story or something like that. Might be the longest piece I've ever written in my entire career. Certainly that got filed in one fell swoop like this. Just an update on every player, 90 guys, 90 thoughts. My thought about George Pickens was he has not been a problem this spring. He showed up when he was supposed to show up. He did what he was supposed to be doing. He got along with everybody. There were no bad vibes from George Pickens. And I think some maturity from him would go a long way toward the Steelers feeling a little bit better about that long-term situation. But will that continue if they don't add anybody on the other side of him and he spends the entire first half of the season getting double teamed, getting 3 catches a game? I don't know. Like, that's tough. They are in a bad situation where it does not seem obvious how they can solve the problem of not having a second receiver good enough to take defensive pressure off George Pickens, while also not paying so much for that guy that you keep yourself from able to have Pickens long term. Like, if Ayuk is the only guy available, I don't know what you do. I think Courtland Sutton's the best option for the Steelers, and I don't know why the Broncos would want to keep him because they're essentially tanking this year. But for whatever reason, that trade hasn't happened either. So I don't know. Ayuk does not seem like a great solution to the Steelers' problems to me, despite being the best player available at that position.
Let me ask you something. And Miami probably also about to pay Tua, so this could make it, this point that I'm about to bring up, like null and void. A different scenario just isn't coming to. Although I guess if San Fran were to pay Ayuk, it would be this situation where you have a quarterback on a very cheap contract. And Derek has talked about this too, like with how important passing games are. Maybe if you don't have the elite quarterback play, the way to make up for it is by paying your pass catchers a boatload of money, even if it's more than one guy. So you're talking about $50 million per year basically for a receiver room on a George Pickens extension plus a Brandon Ayuk extension. Is that feasible to you? Not even necessarily knowing who the quarterback is going to be, but just assuming that it's going to be somebody, whether it's like a rookie contract or somebody relatively cheap.
It depends on how good Arthur Smith is at his job. I mean, it's feasible in San Francisco because of Kyle Shanahan, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's not really feasible everywhere. It's sort of feasible in Miami, or maybe Miami could see it being feasible because of Mike McDaniel, right? Is Arthur Smith going to be a coordinator of that level where it doesn't really matter who his quarterback is, that he can get good results? Look, he did great things with Ryan Tannehill, who I don't think anybody has any illusions about how good he is. I just think in general, this is an offense that wants to run a lot more than it wants to pass. It's also an organization that has had great success finding wide receivers in the draft. Like, are they that close to winning a Super Bowl this year that it makes sense to do this? Or is there just a punt option here and go into the next year and do the best you can? I don't know. It's a bad scenario, but I think, like, if I'm the Steelers, I think I would rather just wait until next year than commit to like 4 years $120 million to Brand and pay probably at least a second-round draft pick for Brandon Ayuk. Like I don't know. I'm not sure how much better that works out for them long term.
I keep going through, and I don't know, maybe a different scenario pops into your head. Like, I know there's teams that are paying 2 receivers. A lot of them are also paying their quarterback big money. So like, it's certainly possible, but then you bring in like how highly paid the Steelers defense is. Like they can make it work, sure. But is there a scenario that you can think of where it's like paying 2 receivers and not having a solution at quarterback? Or like, is this kind of uncharted, at least present day, for the Steelers if they were to do that?
I mean, look, you can commit to being cheap at the quarterback position and just rolling through guys on rookie contracts, but I mean, obviously they just tried that and failed, right? And so look at and I don't think the quarterback talent coming out of college football has been so overwhelming that a team drafting where the Steelers draft should feel good about that plan. It's possible, but I don't know how likely it is. Like, I mean, the Vikings are paying Justin Jefferson now. Jordan Addison's still on his rookie contract, but they basically timed up Justin Jefferson's contract to end before they're going to have to pay their quarterback, right? Before McCarthy's rookie deal ends. Like, you can do that stuff. The Bucks aren't paying, Baker Mayfield all that much. They've got 2 guys that they're paying in Godwin and just gave some good money to Evans. But, I think, I don't know. I think it all depends on Arthur Smith in this offense, and I'm not sure that it's the right offense for those kind of moves, to be honest. I think it's going to be more of a running offense where I'd rather invest in the offensive line. I'd rather invest in the defense, try to control the ball, control the clock, limit the total number of possessions, pay your tight end, maybe even pay your running back. I don't know. Like, this seems like a team that's not built for that path.
Okay, so basically, you're bringing the Steelers and Arthur Smith, the way that they've kind of gone about business philosophy, into it more so than just like the general NFL landscape and the way that things are going in that direction.
Yeah, like I think it makes sense for the 49ers and the Dolphins and maybe the Eagles and a couple other teams, but I don't think paying 2 quarterbacks or 2 wide receivers big money and then the quarterback makes sense for a team that really, really wants to run the ball and really wants its offensive identity to be in the trenches. Like, I don't know. You can't pay everyone everywhere. They don't have an obvious answer at quarterback coming up anytime soon, but I don't know. It seems like an awkward fit, but what they have now is clearly not good enough. So I don't know if maybe an awkward fit looks like it better than nothing or not. I absolutely think a move like Courtland Sutton makes more sense. Yeah. I even think a move like we've talked about, like a Treylon Burks, makes more sense, where you're just you're not standing pat. You're taking a chance, but it's a chance that's going to be high upside and low risk. And it's going to be a chance where if it doesn't work out, you can just go right back to the draft next year and try to solve it that way, which the Steelers should be very comfortable doing.
Yeah, that name is actually one of the 2 that I predicted. I still think, I don't know what the conversations were like when they reached out, but the 2 names that I said I think are the most possible are Treylon Burks or Michael Thomas.
Yeah. Yeah, Michael Thomas is the one guy who's still a free agent that they could bring in. I don't know.
And that's not me wanting that necessarily. That's just me thinking if a trade doesn't materialize or anything like that, hey, this guy's still out there. We kicked the tires earlier. Let's bring him into camp.
I don't see the allure of Michael Thomas unless you just think he's a lot better than Van Jefferson and Quez Watkins. I'm not sure that I do right now. I think maybe he's better, but I don't know. Treylon Burks has at least upside, right? Where you're at least like hoping that he turns into kind of what everyone thought he would be when he came into the league. I get that move. I don't know how much Michael Thomas moves the needle for me, to be honest.
Somebody pointed out too, the thing is, like, he's played inside and outside. Last year he had more success on the inside. So, and obviously, like, you just drafted Roman Wilson, who you're not sure about him translating to the outside, at least early in his career. If you're talking about Michael Thomas, who you're not sure what you're getting on the outside, more exclusively would play on the inside, does that even make sense?
It's not even really fixing the problem, right? Whereas Treylon Burks is just another George Pickens, basically, like pure outside receiver. Not that George hasn't played inside some and will continue to, and they're going to try to find ways to move him around and get some creative releases for him, which will at least help the double team problem some. But yeah, I mean, I think that's the kind of move that makes a lot more sense for the Steelers for me.
I think Houston is keep an eye on them as well. I mean,
Yeah.
something's got to give.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're probably more likely to let someone go with like less total upside. Like John Mechie is again another like more of a slot guy. Noah Brown, maybe.
Yeah, they shouldn't have. If they knew what was going to happen the rest of the offseason, I wonder if they even re-sign him.
I don't know. That's someone that's. I mean, the numbers aren't all inspiring. Like, he only played 10 games last year. He had 567 yards. That's about a 800-yard pace over a full 900-yard pace over a full season.
Like a fifth of that was in one game against either against Baltimore, though. So like
he's also been hurt a bunch. He missed the entire 2019 season. He was hurt a bunch in 2018. Was hurt again in 2021 and last year. So like, I don't know. I wouldn't be like trying to give up a whole lot for him. I think I'd honestly rather have Treylon Burks, even though he's never done anything worth notable at the NFL level. I just think it's a better high upside swing.
Yeah, and I don't think that you're giving up a ton for him.
Yeah,
either.
No,
so
like a day 3 draft pick.
Yeah, so I don't know. Be interesting to see how it plays out. Alan, any other thoughts?
No, I think that's it. Hit us in the comments about what you want us to talk about. We kind of ended in the slow period. We're going to go back to bringing some guests on, I hope, in the next couple of days and weeks. But let us know if there's something you want us to talk about. We certainly will take that under advisement.
Maybe like also like again going back to what we did for the end of mini camp and OTAs and stuff. Maybe specific player conversation. If you're curious about a specific player, drop that in the comments too. But yeah, any content ideas, we want to give you guys what you want to see in here. So I'll be sure to put that in the comments. Alan, tell the people they can find you
at @ASaunders_PGH, PGH Steelers Now, SteelersNow.com. Like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Hit that bell for notifications. Got to keep the subscribers going on YouTube. It's doing very well. I want to keep that momentum rolling now that we don't have that kind of daily practice content. So it's got to come from you guys here, the Afternoon Drive listeners and viewers. So, let's get it done.
There you go. Tell a friend to tell a friend to check out the Steelers Afternoon Drive. If you're not watching on YouTube, you can check us out on whatever listening platform you would like, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast from. Search Steelers Afternoon Drive. Leave us a 5-star review over there. Be sure to subscribe over there. You'll get a notification every time a new episode of the pod drops. You can find me everywhere, Zachary Smith, PGH, for Alan Saunders and myself. Thanks for jumping in. Take another ride on the Steelers Afternoon Drive.